I've got to talk to you about the big picture tonight. You were there last night at the 1922 committee with traditional banging of desks and all a bit schoolboyish, really, but hey. But I know that everything that goes on inside that room is utterly confidential, and you would not be allowed to share with this audience or indeed GB News what went on in that meeting. But I do rather feel, folks, we've got him surrounded tonight, haven't we? You're a new MP.
Yeah.
You're a young MP. You were a Brexiteer. You are very much somebody that espouses Conservative ideas. How was it in that room last night?
Well, I think enough has already been said about what went on in that room.
I haven't heard a word you've said
about
about
it. And I think Laura Kunsberg tweeted it last night, but you started off your show tonight talking about, whether or not the car was a write-off. I think it's time that we think about kicking the tyres, resetting the sat-nav and checking the oil. It's time that we get that car back on the road. We make sure that we are going in the right direction. I think people are understandably angry because when people start losing faith in their politicians, then the whole thing is brought down. And we have to do better. Every single member of Parliament needs to do better, because if we lose the trust and the faith of our constituents...
I'm not really interested at the moment in every other member of Parliament. Fascinating though you and all
Fair
are.
enough.
Yes, Boris did say he'd crashed the car, and it was the nearest thing you'll ever get from him to an apology. He's not the most humble of people. The question is he a write-off? And I do want, by the way, you at home, tell me, and by the way, listen first, but tell me, GBViews at gbnews.uk or tweet at GBNews, is Boris now a write-off? I don't doubt the car needs new tyres. I don't doubt the car needs an oil change. The question really is, does it need a change of driver?
No. It doesn't. And Boris the Prime Minister, has always had the ability of surprising people. He's made a mistake, he knows that, but it's not a write-off for the Prime Minister. He's still got potential.
One mistake was Owen Paterson. One mistake was Owen Paterson. But I wouldn't mind betting there are one or two people in this room who voted Conservative in 2019 who are about to see their taxes rise quite significantly come next spring, the highest tax burden since Clement Attlee was Prime Minister in the late 1940s. I'll bet you there are people in this room that didn't think by voting Conservative we'd effectively get the Green Party, who I know in the centre of Totnes are quite popular, but maybe not so much in Brixham. That was a local joke, sorry. We went out today, earlier, with our camera. Not only did we ask people what they thought of Brixham, which was glowing, by the way, but we also asked people how they now felt about Boris Johnson. Let's have a little quick look at what your constituents said to us on the street at random.
I think you made a mistake with the Brexit. If we shouldn't have came out with any deal, it should have been a no deal at the start, and then we might have had a chance.
I've lost faith in Boris Johnson because of all the promises that he made. And recently, that's all gone down. So I would think that Labour's going to come in this time.
And with the COVID and the actual billions spent on these track and trace, that wasn't as effective as it should have been for the amount of billions spent on it. I think that's bad.
I think he's been dealt a difficult hand.
Yeah.
And I think he's tried his best, but I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of him in the world.
The one thing that I feel that's come from the government is the lack of trust that I feel now that I never did before.
I do think that it's now getting to the point where perhaps we should sort of reconsider.
Well, in their own very polite way, they were your constituents in Conservative voting Brixham, and there is a sense that this man's had his best days, that this man was there for a purpose. Mrs May had completely messed the Brexit deal up. We would have finished up with a half-in, half-out Never Never Land, and in some ways I was very instrumental in Boris getting the job, because I got rid of Mrs May, and I'm quite proud of that in those European elections when places like this voted Brexit Party in a huge way and we got rid of her. So nothing I say is meant with malice. On a personal level, I like him. He's a fun person to be with. I've just felt Anthony for some time he's more of a cheerleader than a leader. And I put it to you that if he stays as your leader, you're going to limp on and your popularity as a party decline in the polls unless you can completely redefine We know about the Brexit stuff. The big ticket stuff's been done. There are battles to fight, it seems to me, over Northern Ireland and fishing, and they're battles that I know that you want to be engaged in. But can he actually get that fizz back?
You know, the one thing about the Conservative Party is that when the leader isn't up to the job, it's utterly brutal in dispatching them. And I take note that it wasn't particularly brutal with Theresa May. It took its time to get there, but eventually we got there, and thanks for her help on it.
No, I got rid of it, not you.
You know, I'll take that. But and I wasn't there at the time. But I think the point is, if the Prime Minister can't deliver, then he has to answer to the 1922 committee and all the backbenchers of the Conservative Party. If we feel he's not delivering, then those are the people he is going to have to face, and that's the problem. You know, the letters will go in. For the moment, I think you also have to look at the positives. You know, fastest vaccine, fastest growth, now the 4th most attractive country in the world to invest in. There are a number of positives here, but you know, we're still in this pandemic. We're still coming out of this, and I think people are naturally frustrated, and they do want more results. I'm disappointed Brixham has not got the money that it needs to develop that harbour further. We've got to go further, and we've got to build that trust.
Well, see, levelling up is interesting.
Yeah.
Levelling up is interesting because levelling up is always used to talk about the Midlands and the North. Actually, Britain's coastal communities, Britain's fishing ports need levelling up because they've had a miserable few decades. The common fisheries policy was a disaster for places like this, and we've still got 103 French boats fishing up to the 6-mile line off Brixham and right along this Channel coast. Anthony, how much frustration, and I've got a couple of fishermen on later with me on Talking Pints, because I thought maybe they'd moderate over a pint, you know, but perhaps I'm wrong. How much frustration is there, do you feel, as an MP here amongst the fishing community?
Just on the first bit, on the levelling up side, it's enormously frustrating because the South West always gets overlooked. This hasn't been something in the last 20 years, it's been something in the last 70 years. And then in the Chancellor's budget, we didn't secure the £20 million that we need for this harbour to support our fishermen who do what they do. So we have to go again, and we have to fight harder, and that's my own fault. You know, I have to double down here, and I have to fight a hell of a lot harder to get the money into this area. I think when it comes to fishing and what we're trying to secure for the most valuable fishing port in England, we need to go further and we need to go faster. It's great there's £100 million, but £100 million from DEFRA is a scratch on the surface. It's not enough.
The fishing industry
is not enough.
We don't want money.
You know,
we want to be able to fish in our own waters and stop the French taking what they're taking on our 6-mile line.
I agree. So we can do that. We can do that, but we have to build up our fleets, we have to build up our ports, and we have to be prepared for the negotiations that we take on next year, and we have to be prepared in 2025 when this transition period, and sorry to use the word transition period again, we have to be able to make sure we are saying to the French that there will be no European vessels within our 12-mile limit. And by the way, the job of all backbench coastal MPs where there are vibrant fishing communities is to get the Secretary of State for DEFRA to make that point, to make that commitment, and we hold their feet to the fire. I've got no disagreement with anyone who wants to see European vessels out of our waters.
Voters of Totnes, residents here in this lovely, lovely port, your local Member of Parliament has pledged to you that he will campaign unequivocally to get the French boats out of our 6 to 12 miles so that we can fish exclusively up to 12 miles. I want you to thank him for coming along, taking part this morning, but I also want you to hold him to his promise. Please.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.